guys. Welcome back to the Anytime Anywhere podcast, where you're liable to hear anything at any time with me, your host, Jaleesa Kayla. Today is Tuesday, August 18th. 18th, I believe it's the 18th, yeah. And of course, I'm out and about, you know, early on the check in. How was y'all weekend? I know today is Tuesday, but I still want to know how's your weekend. What did y'all do? You know, did you stay in? Did you go out? Me, myself, I did some cooking. Actually, on Friday, which I normally don't do. If I cook a meal, it's normally like maybe a Sunday, sometimes a Saturday, but I really try to like not do too much on Saturdays. Um, yeah, but this past weekend I actually cooked on Friday. I made some coconut curry, like Jamaican style coconut curry, crab, snow crab, and shrimp. Y'all, when I say this shit was so good, so good. Like it was my first time making it, and I've been craving seafood a lot, mainly, of course, crab. Every now and then I like a little shrimp. That was just loud and rude. Y'all see, I'm trying to record a podcast episode, and you're just loud. But yeah, normally I've been craving like snow crabs. I mean, it's the summertime, so I feel like that's a given. Maybe, maybe not. Well, at least for those of you that enjoy seafood. For the people that don't, of course, you're not gonna crave it. Like, don't get in the comments or anything to us. Like, I don't crave it. I don't like seafood. I don't see how y'all can eat that stuff. Yeah, well, yeah. I was craving some snow crab, and I was like, although I love a good garlic butter, seasoned down, minus the lemon pepper. Well, a little lemon pepper when it comes to seafood, because lemon with seafood, it's fine. But I really don't like, and I'm never gonna forget how y'all really tried to put lemon pepper on every fucking thing when y'all cook. Like, what was y'all doing before lemon pepper came out? How was you seasoning your food? Anyway, don't try to don't listen. Don't kill the messenger. Okay? I'm just curious. I'm not a big lemon pepper girl. Like, even with wings, I've tried it at different places. Now some lemon pepper, depending on the restaurant you go to, does taste better than others. All lemon pepper is not made equally. That I will say. Everything is just falling. That I will say. However, I'm not about to go order an 8-piece lemon pepper wing. Like, if I'm out with somebody and you get lemon pepper, like, we can swap if you're telling me it's really, really good and it's fried hard and the seasoning and the glaze is busting. I'll try it. We can swap wing for wing, but to get a whole meal of lemon pepper, please, please, count me out. I would never, never, ever again. And I've made them myself because I can really cook. I can really get down. I love cooking, actually. Cooking, like, calms my nerves and just brings me joy and peace. I love feeding people. I love getting into the flow of doing my thing. I love being creative. The kitchen allows that. Like, if you're baking, you can be creative, but when it comes to recipe, you gotta kind of stick to the basics with most things in baking. But when you're cooking actual meals, you can kind of deviate away from the recipe and put your own spin on it. And that's what I love. So when it came to cooking some seafood, I was like, I love a good garlic, um, butter, herb, crab, the usual, the Old Bay. But I want something different. And I hadn't had curry in a long time. So I was like, I just got a taste for like curry, but seafood. I was like, well, yeah, let me make some coconut curry and stop playing. So I made that from scratch, a hit, okay, a fucking hit. So much so that it got repeated for part two on Sunday. Had it again on Sunday. Bought some more seafood and busted down. And I also made a menstrual soup. Like, TMI for the boys, but if you're a guy who cares about your woman's menstrual, health and her endocrine system system and all the good things that, makes her her, that you benefit from, sir. If you care about women's health, then um, this is not TMI. But I made a menstrual cycle soup. So now you will hear me talk about eating meat and different things of that nature. Case in point, I just had seafood. However, I do go back and forth. Like, I jump in between consuming and not consuming for extended periods of time just to give my body a break, and to 777 on the back of this card to also, like, with the hopes of eventually doing away with meat altogether. However, what I've learned about myself personally, and this is just for me personally, over time, I've learned that I'm not going to be so hard on myself about when I do decide to consume meat. Okay, it's just, is it quality? How was it prepared? How often am I consuming it? You know what I'm saying? So that's for me personally. In this current time, I'm not gonna be hard on myself. I'm not gonna beat myself up. I don't pretend to be a vegan, or I don't pretend to be strictly, alkaline or vegan. Like, I'm finding my way. I'm finding what works for me and my body type and what makes me feel good. You know what I'm saying? Not just what I get pleasure from, but what actually does well for my body. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? Because some of us have more of one thing than another. Like, some people's levels of vitamin D are perfect, but then your iron levels may be down. And I know one affects the other. So, you just gotta, it's all about trial and error, knowing your body, and just doing the due diligence. As long as you're working on it actively and really doing your best to get in touch and in tune with what works for you, what more can anybody ask for? It's really just about you and the relationship you have with yourself, your body, with the Most High, Mother and Father, because, health is wealth. And it's also, I was listening to, and this is so off topic, but I was listening to, I think her name is Christina Mackey, Rick Ross, one of Ross's exes, and she's really into fitness and everything like that. And although I've heard this before and I noticed, like, she just kept saying it, like, you were gifted with this vehicle to maneuver in this lifetime, meaning your body. So do the best you can, with this vehicle. Don't beat it up. Don't treat it bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, do right by your body and you'll see the benefits from that. So that's pretty much what I keep at the front of my mind. Do the best I can, put more good into it than not, and do more good by it than not. Okay, now that I know better. Listen, tore the fucking crab and shrimp down. Had it a second time, and then after that, I made on Sunday as well. After I made the shrimp and crab, well, kind of simultaneously. Once I got the crab and shrimp situated and it was on the stove simmering, then I went ahead and put on my menstrual cycle soup, and it had lentils and quinoa and fresh peppers and, onions. And then I roasted some butternut squash along with some tomatoes, which I have to tread lightly with the tomatoes um, for my blood type and body type and everything like that. But yeah, I roasted some garlic, some fresh garlic, some butternut squash, some onion, and some tomato. Roasted that. Then when that was done, I blended it up, and then I added it to the soup on the stove. And I had like some. Oh, that was the reason for me bringing up meat. I seen a recipe for menstrual soup that called for bone marrow. Now, you don't want to just use any bone. I was actually looking for bison bone. I went to Sprouts and I was looking for bison bone, but they didn't have bison bone. They did have bison meat though. So next time, if I want a nice little bite, if I want some meat, I'll put the bison. But what I did was I grabbed the grass-fed beef bone marrow, and they were like huge. So I used about 2 of those in the soup, and just remove them after it was done, slow simmering, like pretty much all day. I slow roasted that soup for more than like 6 hours. So I want to say maybe like 8.5 hours at the most. This soup was on all day, low, very slow. And yeah, it's gonna be that time soon. And I know how I get. I don't want to cook anything. I want everything to be automated right there for me at my disposal, so I don't have to do too much. So yeah, I made that soup ahead of time and just put it in a bunch of different containers and froze like the bulk of it and left like maybe like less than a quarter out, and I just ate that yesterday for, kind of like, I don't want to say for dinner. I've been intermittent fasting lately, and I kind of always seem to fall in that too. Sometimes it's intentional, but a lot of times when I intermittent in when I excuse me, I just had an orange. But when I do intermittent, I can't even say it. I can't say it. Intermittent. Yo, when I eat during a specific time, I generally only eat once a day, and I kind of fell into this just because I got tired of feeling extra bloated. I got tired of feeling like I was just overeating, especially in the summertime. Listen, I was doing a lot of eating, a lot of, drinking. And I don't mean like drinking liquor, but just consuming like a lot of water, a lot of ice, a lot of juices. I was even making my own juice. Like, I have some YouTube videos of me making juice from scratch. I was just trying a lot. However, I'm eating really good, but I'm still eating a lot. Like, it's good things, but I'm eating a lot. If you know what I mean. So I was just like, yeah, I need to fall back. And it just started, you know, it just turned into me intermittent fasting. Even when I want to eat again, my body is like, girl, you don't really need it. And that's when I have to be real with myself and say, you know what, you're right. We're just gonna have these nuts or a little snack or something, versus another meal around dinner time or whatever. So yeah, I've pretty much just been eating once a day and snacking, before and after. I have like a smoothie or some fruit, of course. A lot of the times when I'm moving around during the weekday, early in the AM, I'll definitely have some type of fruit. And then I'll have my main meal around lunchtime. And that varies between 12 to 3 o'clock, even sometimes 4. So I guess that's my window. I would say, when it comes to eating a meal, I'll eat that between 12 and 4:30, 5 o'clock at the latest. And then before and after that, I'm just having like a little snack, but I'm generally not having anything after like 7 o'clock. So 8 o'clock is a shut off for sure, for sure. But yeah, that's been my whole thing. I just been intermittent fasting, cutting back, allowing my organs, to have a break, to have a little rest through. But I'm glad that I got that soup out the way so that once my menstrual does fully come on, I got something to eat that's healthy, that's good. I'm not just grabbing anything because, ladies, we know, once our menstrual comes on, it feels like you're pregnant and you have cravings galore. So, yeah, I put a lot of good things that I haven't had in a while. I haven't had butternut squash in a long time. And it added like a nice hint of sweetness. Oh, and I also put an apple in it because although I didn't fully follow the young lady from TikTok's menstrual soup recipe, I did incorporate a few things that she did in hers, which was the bone marrow as well as the apple. I, you know, put a little apple in there, and along with the butternut squash, it added like a nice hint of sweetness. So good, y'all. So yeah, I'm excited to be eating on that for the next week or so, and yeah, that's what that's gonna be. What else did I do this weekend? I really just rested outside of like cooking. Oh, I did some cleaning. I did like some mass cleaning. 'Cause, I just had to reset. You can't think and manifest in, I don't want to say filth, but even if it's just like little dust, I washed clothes on Sunday, I cleaned up, and just organized everything, threw away and got rid of things that I no longer needed. And that happens periodically, right? Like throughout the seasons, throughout times, you just have times where you just revamp and refresh the energy. So that's pretty much how I spent my time. And just took it easy on myself, not trying to force myself into anything or to like be in hustle mode, because I do enough. Like I had to take it easy on myself and just, keep reassuring myself that shit is changing, for the better. I don't want to say shit, things. Things are changing for the better. My answers. I do have the answers. Along with the prayers that I've been putting out and things I've been manifesting, just making sure I'm being careful with that. And just going inward. A lot of inward motion, which transmutes to outward motion, but in subtle ways. I did some puzzles, y'all. I did one puzzle in one day. Okay, a 500-piece puzzle I did in one day. Because I kept telling myself at one point, like, oh my gosh, I'm bored. And I was like, we not doing that. No, you're not bored. You can do something, even if it's as simple as that. Switch it up. Let your mind rest, but do something productive that gets the juices flowing. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, let me bust out this puzzle. So much so that I did that one in one night. And then yesterday, I started on my second one. And I was like, damn, if I didn't have to get up early in the AM, I would finish this one tonight too. So needless to say, I'm going to be at somebody's dollar store or somewhere getting more puzzles. Because I had puzzles, right? But I would never do them because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not exactly where I want to be settled at. I want to hang up my posters. Well, not my posters, my puzzles. I want to like glue them and frame them and hang them up and things of that nature. And I was just like, girl, you're not gonna be waiting forever, but why wait when you could do it now? Like, it's okay. You can enjoy life right now. I've been telling myself that a lot lately. Enjoy life now. Don't feel like you gotta wait for a perfect time. And this is for anyone out there who may be feeling that way too. You know what I'm saying? Like, some things you do have to be patient for. You do have to display a certain level of discipline, for it to take time to actually come about and manifest. And also, what I've been seeing a lot lately is the universe is waiting for you to become the person that you need to be in order to maintain the gifts and the manifestations that you're putting out there, to be able to carry out the tasks that you need to be able to carry out once you reach these spaces and places. So just doing your best not to rush yourself, not to be hard on yourself, and allow yourself to enjoy life while you're in those in-between stages. We're always going to be in an in-between stage of something, right? Unless I guess you just get to a point where you feel like, okay, I've made it. But that's kind of like stunting your growth, right? Because as long as you're here, you got shit to do. You can expand, you can grow. But I'm just going to say that. Learn to enjoy life if you're someone who was like me in the past where, I would just wait. Feel like I had to wait, I was taught that a lot in life. You got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. And I waited so much for certain things and being told that when a lot of the shit never came about. That's why now as an adult for myself, there's still challenges in that area. However, going through reparenting yourself, of course, like when you have children, you want to give them everything. When you become an adult, now you have control over your life and you can kind of give yourself whatever you want, as long as you work towards it. But also find boundaries. There's not anything wrong with a parent telling you to wait to teach you, again, discipline, to teach you patience, and to allow things to occur and to naturally unfold, right? But I'm going to give myself whatever it is because I was always made to wait for a lot of things. But, yeah, you have to find a balance. You have to find a balance because if not, you'll be that adult who, just can't wait and has to have everything right now when shit doesn't go how you want it to go, or things don't move in the time frame that you think it should be moving in. You losing your shit, you exploded on people, you giving up, which personally I've been challenged with in the past, and I've learned to do things differently and see things differently. So if that's you out there, again, this message is for you, and I'm just letting you know that, trust yourself, trust your timing, and just cool out. Don't be so hard on yourself, but definitely stay consistent and don't become stagnant. If you come from a place where you always had to wait, shit was always stagnant, you couldn't wait until you had your own and could do for yourself. You just gotta find that balance. But speaking of being raised and having to reparent yourself, what I really wanted to chat with y'all about was one of the thoughts that came up for me over this weekend was while I was doing a bit of shadow work, different things were popping up in my head regarding family and how I see myself and how I view my family, and just wanting to hopefully, sometime soon, re-nurture the relationships that I have with my family members. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see it for my mother and my father. I see it for my siblings, cousins and distant relatives that I've never got to know. You know what I'm saying? That's just always the hope. Now, will it really come about? I don't know. And that's something else I had to, let be. Like, okay, if it happens, perfect. If it doesn't happen, then I have to be okay with it, as long as I know I'm always speaking positivity over these family members' lives. You know what I'm saying? Because we can speak over people's lives and not even know we're doing it. And it may not always be something positive or something beneficial from them. Even when you're just thinking a thought about someone, you have to be careful. So I was just thinking about family, thinking about myself, thinking about how I show up, for them, and wondering how they view me. Not because I care about what people think about me, but just to get some insight. Like, okay, how can I be a better sister? How can I be a better auntie? How can I be a better daughter? While A, B, and C was done to me, how has that affected me and how I show up? Am I still showing up with enough grace? Am I making them, feel some type of way? Am I still holding resentment in certain places and making people pay for things that, not to say that I have to forget, but in order to receive certain gifts and to elevate, you have to let a lot of things go. You know what I'm saying? You can't get that head above your heart. Like, you can't hold on to a lot of shit. But with thinking all of that, so much to say, how many of y'all know about, like, getting past life regressions done? Or how many of you believe that this is not our first rodeo? We've lived many lives in different realms, and this is just our current one. Like, do any of y'all believe in that? Because that kept coming up a lot for me lately, and I like to play with the ideas of, like, past lives. And at some point, I do want to get a past life reading. Okay, I know it's not for everyone. I know some people are afraid of what they may find out, or, like, maybe in your past life you was a white male, and in this lifetime you're very much black. For lack of better terms, you're a black woman. Okay. Or maybe in this lifetime you're white, and in your past life, you were a quote unquote slave, and listen, you had hair like But on a serious note, the reason why I'm into past life regressions because I believe that it can tell you a lot about what you're dealing with in this lifetime, what you'll be exposed to, what you've already been exposed to, what you're here to do in this lifetime. You know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of different movements and moving parts. Why certain people are a part of your life in this lifetime, why they were karmic, or why they were such a help for you in this lifetime. Just different things, right? To help you maneuver. Now, I guess it's kind of like telling the future in a way. Some people don't believe in getting their future told to them because, it's the creator's way. The creator knows always, and you knowing certain information, you could fuck up things, right? I get that. However, I feel like if you go in the past, though, I don't know, maybe in a way it's given like that's so Raven. Y'all know how Raven always had visions, and then she would move a certain way and do certain things based on those visions, and sometimes it ended up blowing up in her face, or she would cause a lot of what she saw in the vision because she had the vision and she inserted herself trying to stop something or hinder something or make something come about. That interference caused, a lot of the times in that so Raven for things to go south. Okay. So I get that, like, not interfering and allowing things to unfold organically, but everything is going to unfold organically. However, it's still based off of the choices that you make in this lifetime. 33 on the back of this card. Like, it's still going to very much be based off the choices that you make, which is why a lot of this lifetime, any lifetime really, I would assume, is based on, lessons and not repeating those lessons and just moving on, graduating. That's the real graduation. And they got you paying back all this fucking tuition and going in debt for school because you're graduating from different grades and different career paths with these degrees and shit like that. Like, putting you in debt when the real graduations take place almost every day. If there's a chance to learn something and turn that knowledge into wisdom and just graduate. So you're not repeating cycles, so you're not doing a lot of the same shit over and over again. You're learning, you know so that you can ascend. So when I was thinking about past life, regressions and shit like that, what really sparked it was me watching Tubi. I know, y'all. Don't sleep on Tubi though. However, I may be biased because I'm someone who always, like, one of my pastimes is watching like low budget movies. Okay. When I was younger, I can tolerate the really, really bad ones. Like, the really, really, really bad ones were fun to watch when I was in like my early teens and shit like that. However, now that I'm grown, I could do a good little low budget movie. However, some is just too low budget for me now. Like, when I look at certain Tubi movies and shit, I'm like, damn, when I was younger, this probably would have been a hit, but now I can't do this shit. Like, no. However, there is this show that I found on Tubi. It was called Damascus. Have any of you heard of this show? Um, it was an AMC original that I found out. However, they only had like one so far. They only had one pilot season. I guess to see if the show was going to do what it needed to do on AMC. I don't know if it did or not. I think it came out like maybe 2023, 24-ish, if I'm not mistaken, from what I saw. But anyway, in the show, the main character, Damascus, like, he goes to his therapist, who is played by, I can't remember her name, which I'm upset that I can't remember this woman's name, but she is a living legend, and everybody knows her as the brown-skinned Aunt Viv from The Fresh Prince. She is the therapist in this show, Damascus, and she's helping him, I guess, with finding his place in life and why certain things are happening in his lifetime that he's currently in, which in the show they call the current lifetime, reality, your primary realm. But when he goes to her for therapy, she puts like this thing on him. I don't know if it's like this 3D type thing. It kind of looks like ear muffs or like earphones. She puts this thing on his head, over his head, and it helps him, travel to different realms where he lived different lifetimes, kind of like past life regressions, pretty much. And yeah, when he's traveling to these different lifetimes, he's finding out that a lot of the people that's with him in his primary realm, in his primary reality, have been with him in different realms in different lifetimes, and they've played different roles. Some of them pretty much play all the same roles, whether it was his sibling, she's always been his sibling, or like in one of, he has his best friend named Red, I believe, and they've always been friends in most of his lifetime. You know what I'm saying? But in one, and I kind of like called this just based on certain context from one episode, but in one lifetime, they actually were lovers before. And I was like, that makes so much fucking sense. So thinking about that show and just giving y'all a quick rundown, right, of that, with my own experiences in this lifetime and thinking about family and friends and how I'm showing up and what my relationships mean to me, kind of coming out of hermit mode and finding my way again and not wanting to leave a negative impact on other people's lives for the sake of healing myself, right? I still want to be personable. I still want to come off as, being human and in touch with others and loving and caring and kind. I just had to put up certain boundaries. Okay. And that's a whole nother topic. However, yeah, watching that show really just put the thought of past life regression back on my mind, because I had been thinking about it like maybe 2 years prior, but I ain't had a funds at the time to get a reading done. And you don't want to get something like that. Well, at least me. I don't want to get something like that done just from any old body, right? So, take your time. You do your due diligence and research until you can find someone that you trust to do a reading if you decide to get a reading. So that's why I haven't done it yet. But it's always been on my mind. And just seeing this show last weekend, it put it back on my mind. And I was thinking like, yo, the shit that I've gone through with my parents and the relationship in this current present time, like the dynamic, it's just like, yo, I can point so many fingers at my parents, or if not point fingers, just recall all the things that, I've experienced with them being my parents in this lifetime, and what that means, and the work that I've had to do because of how I was raised and the relationships that I've had with them. And I'm just like, yo, thinking about karma and shit, like, what if my parents were my kids in another lifetime? And I'm not saying that my relationship and what I've experienced with my parents was all negative. However, the parts where it wasn't so favorable, and I've had to do a lot of shadow work to, rise above certain things and allow things to be as they are and just accept and figure out what it means for me. Just like, what if they were my fucking kids in another lifetime, right? And a part of what I experienced in this lifetime is not only to learn and to, become a new and conquer shit, but what if this karma? What if they were my kids in another lifetime and shit, and I put them through some crazy shit? I put them through some crazy work in another lifetime, and in this lifetime, they just came back to do me in. And and if my parents ever hear this, listen, I love y'all dearly. You know what I'm saying? I love y'all. I appreciate you for the sacrifices that you made, and I appreciate your place in my life. However, this is my truth, and I'm just thinking about some shit because you gotta own up to the shit that you didn't know, the shit that you did know. You know, I've had more conversations with my mother than my father. However, there's still like, my journey is my journey. So this is not for anyone to take offense. If you do, you know, that's personal to you. Anytime I speak on my life and my experiences, it's just that, my life and my experience, you know. It's unfortunate that you didn't have all the tools to show up differently in my life. That's just what it is. You know, we all go through it. There's going to be someone who said I showed up in their life and it wasn't in the best way. I have to eat that. You know, I had to learn from that. I had to change my ways, you know. And if the opportunity presented itself and I felt the need to, then I would have to not only own up to it, but also apologize for, you know, showing up in that way when I didn't know any better. So, you know, I forgive y'all for what you did not know. However, a lot of shit was fucked up. I'm just gonna say it. Like, a lot of shit, when I'm able to recall on how I was raised and the things I experienced with my parents, a lot of shit was great. There were a lot of great times. And we tend to only harp on the negative times. There was a lot of great times I experienced with my parents. My parents taught me a lot directly and indirectly. However, this is the moment where I'm going to be that child and speak on the shit that I went through. Like, yo, what the fuck? Like, were y'all my kids in another lifetime? Like, or a distant friend, or were we related in a different way that I just was like not the best in that lifetime? And in this lifetime, y'all came back to get revenge on my ass? I don't know. My mind is just working like that because that's always a possibility. Or, you know, maybe I didn't have certain boundaries in other lifetimes, and I had to come back here, not only for my parents, but people that I've dated, people that I've befriended. They came to try to finish me off and shit. Like, yo, 33. I'm so serious, though, you know? I just play around with those thoughts because anything is possible. And I would like y'all feedback. Like, do y'all, I feel like the people that feel me and can understand it. You know what I'm saying? It's not for everyone to understand or wrap their head around, or you may not be interested in, you know, knowing what happened in your past life or what the fuck or whatever. But that's just me, y'all. I was really thinking like, damn, how many people did I not do the best by in other lifetimes? You know what I'm saying? What things am I still carrying over from other lifetimes in this lifetime that is like, okay, girl, we gotta figure this out. Like, because know that when I give like prayers and things of that nature, I'm doing it not only for myself, I'm doing it for my lineage, I'm doing it for, you know, my family in this lifetime. I'm doing it for my unborn. I've even done it for my divine masculine and his family, you know, at different times. Not as much as I've done for my own and for myself. However, I still throw them in there, you know, when I see fit, because quote unquote curses and different things that have taken place in other people's lives and over their lineage, when y'all link together, you know, that very well affects you as well. And I don't think we think that far a lot of the time. So that's why I do that. You know, I picked up on that information and then I started implementing it. I think it's perfect, you know. But yeah, y'all, like, let me know in the comments, how y'all feel about past life regressions? Have you ever heard of past life regressions? And, you know, is that something that interests you? Have you had one? Shit. If you're somebody who's had one, I definitely need to see you in the comments. You know, you don't gotta go in depth if you don't want to. But we would love to hear what your experience has been. And if you've gotten it done, would you do it again? Did it scare the shit out of you? Did it make sense? I've listened to some through YouTube, and I've also seen one girl. Her name is Jaleesa. I forget her name, but I used to watch her on YouTube. She got one done. She's like a big YouTuber, and I've watched her over time. Where I think in her past life regression, like the father of her son who I believe she was married to at one time, like they had traveled other lifetimes together. You know what I'm saying? And they ended up splitting. I don't want to do too much on her situation, but it's public, you know. Well, it was public at the time. So they split in this lifetime. And I guess at some point she was having a hard time with it, you know. And when she got the reading done, it came out that they had been lovers in another lifetime, and they had already agreed to and promised to do it again in this lifetime for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's major. A lot of the times, like we say, oh, I didn't ask to fucking be here, which we didn't, you know, in our flesh and all that. No, we didn't ask to be here. But at the same time, we did commit ourselves to coming back here, learning, unlearning, learning again, you know, transmuting, and just changing the trajectory for ourselves and the cycles that we experience. Like, you ever peep, like, how many of you have noticed, if this is you, how many of you have noticed when things start to feel familiar in your adulthood that you experienced in like teenage years, or like when you were a young child? Like, do you pick up on patterns and shit like that? I think it says a lot, you know, about why we experience what we experience and why we're here in this current realm and what it all means, y'all. I don't know. It's fascinating to me. And like I said, I'm someone who's interested and not really scared to, you know, shit, I'm here. Okay. And the things that I've experienced, the things that I've seen, the things that I've witnessed, I'm, you know, I'm not afraid to go into a past life and to see what it was. What's up? Like, what's up with your girl? You know, who was I in this lifetime? Who was I in that lifetime? What were my tasks then? And what's my tasks now? How do they compare? And what have I accomplished so far? And what do I have to go? You know, I'm not trying to be on no, that's so Raven. It says love it again and again on the back of this one. So I guess I would take that as, regardless, in each lifetime, appreciate it and love it and respect it while you're here, and try to do the best that you can. That was a message on the back of that truck. It said, love it again and again. But yeah, y'all, those are my thoughts. And I highly, you know, it's kind of like a teaser because I don't know if they're going to come out with more seasons of that show, Damascus. But it was really cool. Oh, on top of the original Aunt Viv being in there, also Martin makes appearances. And that's like one of my favorite comedians of all time. I love Martin. He makes an appearance in it. So yeah, y'all, if you're a Tubi guy or gal, I would you know, highly recommend that you tune into Damascus while it's available on Tubi. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's an AMC original, so maybe you can find it somewhere else, but I saw it on Tubi. And if you're someone that's into, you know, past life regressions and just dream states and astral projection and shit like that, I would say tune into it. I think it's called a sci-fi comedy is what the genre is listed under on Tubi. So yeah, check it out. You know, and let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. You know what I'm saying? Again, are you someone that's gotten it done? Are you thinking about it, but you're just nervous? You know, where do you stand when it comes to that? I'm gonna let y'all know when I get one done, though. You know, I may not go into detail, but then again, maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. You know, this is my life and my experience. So I may let y'all know. I may even take y'all with me 77, you know. Depends on how things go. However, I know at the most that I am going to love myself always and always. And I also invite you and challenge you to do the same. After you love yourself always and always, be sure, I'm going to switch it up this one because loving yourself is more important than anything else. So first, this episode, love yourself always, always. And do it again and again and again. Like, that message on the back of that truck says. And then after you love yourself, always, in all ways, be sure to like, leave a comment below. Let me know what's up with y'all. How was your weekend? Did you cook? What did you do? What do you think about past life regressions? Is your girl someone who needs to look into making menstrual soups and things of that nature to just take care of her womb health? That's important, ladies. Put your womb first. And be sure to turn on your bell notifications so you don't miss another episode. I don't know when I'll be back on. Oh, y'all, hold on. I'm lying. I'm going to do my best to get more consistent with YouTube. However, if you're not listening on YouTube or you don't like to play YouTube like that, I am on SoundCloud. So depending on where you're listening at, shout out to you. I love you. If you're listening currently on SoundCloud, then you already know new episodes every Saturday. And I think I might do the same for YouTube. Like every Saturday is going to be a new episode just to stay consistent with the drops. Because I have a few episodes that I need to release, you know what I'm saying? And I want to stay current with y'all. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do Saturdays. Oh, I may do two. Saturday is for sure one of the days. We'll see how that flows to give y'all something to listen to. And I think maybe Wednesdays. What y'all think about Wednesdays? Yeah, I think maybe I'll drop twice a week. Yeah, we'll see. That's the goal, y'all. Twice a week, Saturday for sure, and I'm thinking maybe like Wednesday or Thursday. Thirsty Thursdays or Wednesday. Where you at Wednesday? Where we at, y'all? Maybe, yeah, we'll see. But either way, wherever you're listening at, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications so you can meet me back here. I can't say I don't know when. Meet me back here on Saturday or whenever you decide to listen. And don't forget to love yourself always and always. And until next time, y'all, bye. Mwah!